today, like I'd like to uh, do a seminar on the data wrangling for data visualization. So when I say data visualization, usually like 80%, 90% of the time, you actually need to prepare that data by transforming or cleaning and stuff. So, like when people said data visualization, the people really mean is actually data wrangling. So I said data wrangling, but data wrangling is about meaning really like transforming, the cleaning up the data or preparing the data. Okay, let's get started. Let me introduce myself. My name is Kan Nishida, CEO at Exploratory. We started Exploratory in 2016 spring to democratize data science. And what we're really doing is to build this tool called Exploratory. And also we provide the training and seminar sometimes to, you know, uh, bring the skill and the knowledge of the data science to hands of everybody. And prior to starting Exploratory, like I used to be working at Oracle as a development director, building various data science related products and then delivered to our customers at that time. Okay. And our mission is to really democratize data science because we believe more people not need to, but I think it's more becoming to use data to make better decisions. And in order to make that world we really bring the data science into everybody's hands. So that's, I think, our mission. To do, like one of the things we do is build Exploratory. Then when we say data science, and we think of this way, sort of like a workflow, usually you start with a question that you want to answer the question by using the data. So therefore, like first thing you do is like you find the data or access the data. And typically, this is a really today's topic, but once you get the data is not ready for visualizing or analyzing. So you go data wrangling process to clean up and transforming and then all that stuff. And then once that's done, then you can actually, okay, here we go. Then you can visualize the data so that your eyes can, see the patterns and the trend in that data. But our eyes have limitations. So therefore, that's where like analytics comes in. So like machine learning or statistical algorithms and methods can help us find hidden patterns and then trend in that data. And then in this circle, it's not like sequence order. Like it can go any direction, any way, any combinations. But you go through this process, and eventually, like you find insights or the knowledge from the data that helps you make better decisions. Then, if you're the only person who need to make that decision, like that's the end of the story. But most of the time, like you work with a team, you work with partners and customers and others. So therefore, like you need to communicate what you have found from the data, and that's the communication piece. And we think these 5 pieces are very important to do the data science work. So therefore, we build the Exploratory to provide a modern and simple UI to do these 5 steps in a cohesive way. Okay, so that's Exploratory. Enough about us. So let's get into today's topic, data wrangling for data visualization. First, we're gonna use COVID-19 data. So this year, I'm sure this is kind of weird because I can expect everybody understand this whole COVID-19. This is a global phenomenon that once in a lifetime, I hope so. But so this time, this crazy thing happened. Everybody's life has been changed and in a dramatic way. But I think there's one very interesting thing about this virus or this phenomenon is that this time we had tons of data. Even though some data is corrupt or not, appropriate, whatever, but still we had tons of data available real time. So therefore, like if you can, you know how to use the data, then you can access to it as this basically the same level that all the media or scientists or or any type of the people have access to. So this is sort of like amazing because the data really has been democratized. And then so, for example, one of the data source, this is used by media or notable outputs is Johns Hopkins. Johns Hopkins University hosted this COVID-19 data and then updating every day. So it's on the GitHub, and then you can download it or you can access through HTTP. The problem is like once you get this data, the first thing is import the data, but then the data is not in the format that like, you can start visualizing quickly. So that's the problem, and that's really the topic of today, like how we can get this data to be in a format so that you can visualize and start understanding that data. So 3 things I like to cover, and my seminar is known for like always not being able to keep the time. So I hope we can get that done. But these 3 things I like to focus. Number 1, this transforming the wide data to long data. And the second one is to do some kind of calculations. This is gonna use something called window calculation. I'll talk about that later. And then the third is joining with another data frame. Okay, so these are 3 things. And then the first, transform the wide data to long data. So what I mean by that is, let's actually do this in a live fashion. Hopefully this works. Sometimes network doesn't work, but let's see. So first, you want to get this Johns Hopkins data here, and then this is a page. You're going to have that link after the seminar, or you can actually go now. And then one of the folder called case COVID-19 data, CSSC COVID-19 data. When you click on it, and then there are a bunch of 3 folders. One of them is a time series. And this is the data like we basically want to have. And it's a kind of daily data. And then one of the data is called this time series COVID-19 deaths global. So like how many people die in each country. And then I've already copied this URL. So you can, one way to do it is you can download this data here onto your local PC and then import it as a local file data. Or you can actually import that data directly from that GitHub through the HTTP. And that's what we want to do. So select the file data, and then instead of local, like you want to select a remote, and then select this text file. And then you want to paste this CSV file, just like a URL, and then click OK. So this basically is going to the GitHub, and then directly downloading this CSV file. Oh, great, it comes in. And then if it looks okay, you can just go click on the Save button. And the name is whatever the data is fine. I'm gonna just make it simple. So okay, COVID-19, this data. And then here we go. Okay. And let's see if data gets imported. What happened here? Oh, okay, cool. All right, so the data is imported, and then it looks like a 284 columns and 267 rows. And the 267 rows is most likely probably like a number of the countries, like even though it's there, it says country region, it's only 189 countries. But when we go to the table view, I think this is more like a typical data format you would see in Excel. And you're going to see 284 columns, but most of the column is basically each data, each day. And this type of the data is something called, in this world, people call it like wide data. So that's here. So, okay, so wide data because each day is presented as a column, and this doesn't have to be date. Sometimes you might see like a country name as a column too. So as the data increase, the number of the columns increase. This type of data is called wide data. What we want to do is to transform that kind of data to something called long data. So more data comes in, then it goes down. The longer the data gets. So that's what we want to do. And because if we do it, then we can assign, for example, in this case, date and this, and presented the two different columns, then we can assign to, let's say, like x-axis, y-axis in the column. So that's what we want to do. Otherwise, right now, like if I go to the chart view and then, okay, let's visualize, and then I select the line chart, and then the first thing you see is x-axis is like, it's all date. So therefore, like you kind of get stuck on this one. So that's why like we want to do transformation. So one thing you can do quickly here is select the columns that you want to transform from wide to long. In this case, basically the date columns. So date columns start from this like 1/22, 2020 to all the way to the right side. Here, October 27, 2020. And using the shift key, then you select all the columns. Then what you can do is any column is fine, like you get the column header menu, and then there is a gather wide to long. That's the operation we want to do. And then here, selected columns, you can do the selected columns, but then you're basically selecting like 200 some columns, and it's going to get messy. So like you want to do like, let's say, selected range. So from first column to the last column. So I'm going to select this one. And then you get this gather wide to long dialog. And then like you can select, it's already start and end columns being selected. That means all the columns between will be the target of the operation. And then what we want to do is a new column. So like what are, you remember I was showing here, eventually, like we want to have this format. So let's call it like a date and the death. These are two new columns. So I'm going to just call it like this, and then click on the run button. And this basically brings that data from now down to 6 columns because all those dates are now presented in the date, and then a corresponding number or the values are presented under the death column. So this looks good, and we can go to the next step, but there's one thing. So here is a button, the kind of import button. And then this is actually cool because tomorrow they will add another day of the data, right? Another data for the today. And then a week later, you will have another week of the data, right? So then you don't want to re-import and get the new data and kind of stuff, because then you ended up like a bunch of data frames on the left-hand side. Instead, what you want to do, you want to click this button to re-import the new data. I mean, like updated data from the same data source. This can be done from local or remote, either way. And this is very important because like you start having like a bunch of steps on right-hand side. This is like a data wrangling steps. And then you don't want to recreate those things. Instead, you want to automate it. So tomorrow or a week later or a month later, all you need to do is just click on this button, and then these steps will be automatically applied. This is called reproducible data. But if there's one problem, because tomorrow they will add another column, then in that case, this gather dialog is end column is October 27. Tomorrow is going to be 28. The day after tomorrow is 29 or something. Then you have to come here to manually change it. We don't want to do that. Another way the good news is there's another way to select the columns of the target, which is to, instead of like setting the columns to include as a target, you can use exclude. So exclude option, then what you want to do is, let me show you here quickly. Go back to the first step. Ooh. These from province to this like latitude long, these are the columns that we want to exclude from the target of the gather step, right? So that's something that like we can actually tell this step. So that's what I'm going to do. Like I'm going to go to this gather step and click on the token, open this dialog. And instead of selecting the columns to include, instead like a columns to exclude. And what are the columns I want to exclude? Well, starting from province state to end is this like a long. And that means everything else will be the target for the gathering. So now I click run button. Then you get basically the same, exact same result, except the way you selecting the columns are different. It's different. And then tomorrow, a week later, all you need to do is just click this button. You don't care if there's another column or not, as long as they didn't change the first 4 columns. Okay, so now we got this data, and the next thing, let's start visualizing this data, right? We want to see the trend, how the number of the deaths is increasing, decreasing, that kind of stuff. So I select the line chart. Here's the one problem though. Now the chart, this is called pin button. The pin button is pinned, point to the first step, step 1. This is right after the data is imported. That means when I go to the x-axis, I still see the same type of columns. And that's not what we want because this pin is no matter which step I select on the right-hand side, always try to get the data from the pin step for the chart. What I want to do is I want to move this pin and drag and drop to the second step so that now this chart is getting the data after the gather operation. To do, then you go to the x-axis. Now I see the date column, and that's good. I'm going to assign a date and a y-axis and a death. And then I get this data. But there's something kind of weird. What's going on here? Looks like going up later, but at the beginning it's super huge. But when you pay attention closely here, you see like a January data, then October, then February, and it's March and so on. And that is because it's sorted by the kind of like alphabetical order or like a numerical order. And then because the x-axis, when you look at here, the icon for the date is A, meaning character data type. This is not considered as a date, but what we want to do is like we want to sort this data in a natural date order. Like, of course, February comes after January, and October should be coming after September, right? So that's let's go to the table view, and here date column is a character. We want to convert this character data type to date data type. And so let's we can do that from here, column header menu, and then select the change data type. And then underneath there's a convert to date/time. And there's a bunch of options here. And then but you can basically, all you need to know is what is the order used for that this particular column, in this case, date. Looks like January 22, 2020. That means month, day, and year. So that's the order. So that's the only things you need to know. You need to care. So month, day, year, this option. Okay, so when I select this, and then inside, this is a create calculation dialog, and it will create calculation step on the right-hand side. But inside, the function called MDY is already being populated automatically. This MDY, by the way, represents month, day, year. So if you happen to have like a year, month, day, all of the data, then you would use like a YMD, and all different types of options being prepared. And the cool thing about this function is that in this case, it's separated by slash, but it doesn't matter if it's separated by hyphen or what do you call it, dash, or separated by space, separated by characters, it doesn't matter. All it matters is the order. So now we don't really have to do anything. This like MDY function is there, so you can just click on run button, and then this column is being transformed to date data type, and which is good. That's good. So then let's go back to the chart view, and then that we still have the same chart. And because this pin is still pointing to the step 2, so we can actually bring this one to the step 3. Then now the data is coming from after the data type transformation. Okay, so now the x-axis, the date seems to be naturally sorted. Looks good. So this is the total number of the deaths all over the world combined. Okay, So from here, what we can do is, for example, we can assign, for example, let's see by the country. So like when you select the country here, and then you get something like this. And you see like a color, this legend from Afghanistan too. When you look at the others, and this data has like 189 countries of the data, but you see only like 20 countries. And that's because automatically when you assign like many unique values column, it will create other group because it don't want to have like 189 lines. So you can change this setting. But if I remove this free setting, that you ended up like a crazy amount of that lines. Instead, we want to show the 20 countries fine, but 20 top countries. How about like based on the number of the deaths or something? So that is something you can do from here, from the color menu. Select this limit. This is limit, which values to be shown. And then underneath, there's a couple of ways to do it. One simple one is the top, and top is the top 20. So let's go with the top 20 and how you wanna decide what are the top 20, what number of the deaths. So for example, here, I want to select the deaths or the current y-axis, either way is fine. And then you can just sum, but sum meaning like basically summing up all the numbers. By the way, this is a cumulative number. So for example, this data is the number of the deaths and up to this day, right? So the sum is okay, but also how about like the last day? Because this is the day number of deaths that presents current number of deaths. So I can select that, for example, let's say last row. So yeah, last row, and also max either way, but the last row meaning in this case, the last point of the data. And then if I apply, and then like I should be getting the last 20. However, I still have these others, and I still looks like alphabetical order, like a first 20 or something. That is because we still have this like other group setting, that frequently 20. So like I can click on this one and I can disable it. So that like based on the all 189 countries, I want to pick top 20 based on number of deaths on the last day. It's super long sentence. Anyway, if I click on it, and this is sort of like I was expecting. So now like based on this value, for example, US and then Brazil and India and so on, and the number of the deaths, and then like I pick basically, we are picking top 20 countries and showing here. So if you want to show like top 10, top 50, whatever, and you can just adjust it from here. Okay, so let's go to the next topic. So, oops, what's going on here? Okay. Next topic is calculate the number of new deaths and visualize. As we have seen, okay. So under this topic, we're gonna introduce like how to summarize the data, how to sort the data, and also how you can use something called window calculation. But in reality, it's called lag function. But in order to use the lag function, we gotta group that data frame. So it's a little bit of the steps. So those are the things that I like to cover. Okay, so first, when you look at this data though, do you see here? It's like Australia has like like a 7, 8, like a state of provinces. So looks like this each row is not necessarily represent each country and day. It's actually at the state level, but some country has a state, some country don't. And then so what we want to do for now, we basically sum up like get the total and showing that in the line chart. That's fine. But what we want to do from here is we're going to start doing some kind of calculation, window calculation. So I want to make sure each country, each row is the country and also the date. So that in order to do, like I want to basically summarize or aggregate this data at the country level. So for example, Australia, I want to have like Australia, not that's 8 Australia for January 22. I want to have a January 22, I have only 1 Australia. Same thing for other countries if they have the province and the states. So let's do it. It's very simple. From the country region column header menu, they just summarize and select the summarize. Then the preview you see is like each country has a number of rows, like 38 days or 304 days and so on. What we want to do is not the number of rows that we are interested in. What we're interested in here is this like this numbers. So here, country, and then how many days for each country. But this one is now like an entire total, like we just sum up the whole thing. No, that's not what we want. We want to have the this number for each day for each country. So under the group by, I can select the date here, and the default is year. This is like aggregation level. I want to actually aggregate at the day level. So that, for example, Afghanistan, January 22, 23, 24, and so on. And that's the level of the data like I like to get. So this way, like we have the death number for each day for each country. So looks okay, like I click on run button. And then now we have country column, date column, and then this numbers. You can change the column name if you like, but for this seminar, I'm gonna just go ahead with these 3 column names. Okay, so now that we know like each row, what each row represent. So from here, what we want to do is, for example, if I'm gonna just click on the filter and let's see like what's the country here. This is like a table level filter, not the step, but let's see, like, for example, this is the United States. And then I'm gonna show more rows here. Let's say 500 rows maybe. And then if you scroll down, so numbers keep increasing, right? So this is the cumulative numbers. So in order to calculate that new deaths, so like how many people die in each day, and that's what we want to get. And to do here, let me just use this slide. So we have this data like this. Each day accumulate based on the data up to previous day. So what we want to do is basically calculate the current value. Let's say like let's focus on that, the second from the bottom. The number of the days is 1,200 or 1,200. But how many people die on that day, like April 2nd, is all you need to do is just minus the previous value, in this case 1,000. So 1,200 minus 1,000 equals 200. That's the number that sort of like how many numbers increase from the day before. So let's call it new death, and that's a 200. The same thing, we want to do that as well. To do, there is a function called lag. If you want to get the next row instead of previous, then you use lead. But in this case, we want to use a lag function. And then you can calculate this, or you can bring that previous value. And once you have that, then all you need to do is just like a subtraction. So in this case, like a death minus lag bracket death, and that basically equals the new death. And what we want to do is that, but there's two things we need to be careful. Because we are bringing the previous value, what is the previous value? You got to be very careful because if the data is not sorted, you ended up getting something very weird. For example, let's look at this one. Like a date column is not sorted, like April 1st, April 3rd, and April 2nd. If you use the lag function here, you ended up getting wrong calculated result. So what you want to do is first you want to sort the data, make sure the data is sorted. In this Johns Hopkins data, the data is already sorted, so we don't have to, but we always want to make sure. And then the second is that you don't want to cross lag. What that means. So we have multiple countries, let's say like US and Japan. And then if we just apply lag function blindly, then what's going to happen is the first row in Japan, in this case, take the previous value from US numbers. Then you ended up like doing a calculation and you get kind of crazy value. So what we want to do is we want to actually create some kind of a stopping zone, like a wall or something. Then we want that lag calculation happen only within the group. And then when it goes to the next group, start from 0, right? So I mean, start from, yeah, first row. So that is called group by, and you can actually group by the data frame into basically like different what do you call it? Oh my gosh, I forgot that word. Let's say like groups. Okay, and then like we can apply this lag function on each group. So let's let's do that here. I'm gonna just remove this like a table filter thing. It's kind of it can be confusing, and I'm gonna make that to just 100 or something. Okay, so what we want to do is make sure, like, let's say like this is sorted, so this date column is sorted. So like I'm gonna do is there's an orange sort, and then like ascending order. It's fine from small value to the bigger values. So I'm gonna select that and then sort the data. So now all the countries are kind of mixed, but that's expected. And from here, we want to do is we want to group the data. So here by the country. So like I want to do like this is a group by. By the way, like when we did the summarize step, inside the summarize, we are actually doing a, yeah, go ahead. We are, sorry, we are doing a group by inside the summarize step. But here we're gonna do group by explicitly. And then, so here, okay. So now Afghanistan, and then I think if we show more value, let's say, after Afghanistan's, and then after the October 27, now it's go to Albania. So on. So like now each section is being grouped. Oh, partition. That's the word I was looking for. So okay, created partition. The same thing. Anyway, so now what we can do is we want to actually use a lag function. But to do though, like two ways to do it. One is if you know the lag function, you can go ahead, select and create calculation and then get that mutate dialog. Or if you are not sure, then there's a create window calculation. And the window calculation is basically, window is considered this like a partition or the group I was talking about. That's the window. And then whatever the calculation you're gonna do under this, this list should be done within each window, AKA partition or group and so on. So what we want to do though here is like a difference from previous. And this is basically gonna get a previous value calculation. So I'm gonna select this, but this is just a shortcut to generate this calculation. And this is the calculation that I was showing in the slide. So basically current value and then from previous value. To get the previous value, like we're using lag function and just doing that subtraction. So let's call this as a new desk. Okay, and then click run button. And then you get that number. So this is actually okay, here you go. So we have like a desk and a new desk number. And then now once we get this number, then what we can do is we can go to the chart and then show like how many people or have died on that particular day. And then we wanna see that trend. So I'm gonna just copy this chart and duplicate it. And then instead of showing the original deaths, again, here, I don't see that new column I calculated. That's because right-hand side, the pin is not there. So I'm gonna just move the pin to the 7th step. And then x-axis is column name has been changed. So like I'm gonna change that to here. And then the y-axis, there's a new death. And select that, ooh, that's weird, error is coming here. Why is that? That's, I'm gonna just take this out, wait. Let's remove this first. Okay, so this is like a number, new deaths numbers, and we are looking at this like a global, worldwide. And I wanna do, select a few countries, for example, let's say, By the way, this is like a chart level filter. You can filter the data at the chart level or the step level. When you filter the data at the step level, all the charts are pointing to the step. We'll have the filtered data. Sometimes you don't want to, like you want to have like a filter on each chart. So in this case, you can use a chart level filter. I'm going to select is in operator. And then let's say I want to see like US, for example, or like UK, for example. Oh, maybe United Kingdom. Okay, here we go. And maybe Japan, and so on. And any country is fine. And this is basically those 4 countries combined. And then like I want to use a color and then just kind of separate it and then see like a different trend, and so on. So now we have 4 countries, number of the days of the day, and then like we basically see the trend. As you see, the number goes up and down, up and down. It's super busy. This probably has something to do with like weekday and weekend. And it was kind of a weird thing, like people don't die in a weekend or die in a weekday, but I think maybe some kind of reporting issue. But anyway, we want to make this like a kind of a smooth little bit instead of like going up and down things. And typical, like one of the ways that you can use is like a kind of moving average to smooth out this line. And you can actually do it as a data wrangling step, but you can do it within a chart. So this time, let's do it inside the chart. Same thing, window calculation. This window calculation is basically the same kind of thing that like we have done as a data wrangling step, but except we are doing it inside the chart. So now what I want to do is moving calculation. And then instead of sum, let's select moving average or mean. And window size, let's select 7 days average, and then basically like average out, then window alignment and so on. But I'm gonna just click on the apply. And then now that line is kind of smoothed out. So like 7 days average, this is a trend of like number of people dying in each country. You see like a similarity between some countries and then a very different among countries. When you look at here, United States is so huge. Oh my gosh. And then the next one, the United Kingdom and France. And then last is Japan. It's almost like nothing here. But one thing, probably some of you guys already start noticing, well, doesn't United States have much more population than United Kingdom and then France? And yes, so what we want to do is usually calculate based on the population. The typical thing people do is per 1 million people or something. So then if we know the population for each country, then we can do the calculation. So that's the third topic, last topic of the day. Let's see here. Okay, so this is where we want to actually do is we want to join with another data frame. And then I'm going to just talk about the very high level things first. So we have the data left-hand side, right? And then what if like we have the population column here? Then all you need to do is just like divide new deaths by the population. Then you get that data, what we want. Where you get that population? Well, you Google and you can find the data from like World Bank or even I think WHO maybe. You can find it easily. But we also host this data under the data catalog. So when you go there, and then you can actually get the data. Let's do that here. I think it's much better to do it in the live. So plus button on the data frame, and there's a data catalog. And then this is all the data we host at our server. You can host it as well if you like. But anyway, so I'm gonna just type it like population and click on it and go to the server. And then here, a bunch of data. I think there's one GDP and population by country from 1960 to 2017. A little bit old, but probably more or less represent the population for each country. So I'm gonna use this. And if you wanna know more, you can click on this open button. And then this will open our page like this here. And then you can see like what this data is, where the data is coming from, and then all sorts of things. But now I'm gonna just import this one. Click on the import button. And then now it's getting the data from export.io, our server, and it looks okay. Just click on the save button. And then the name, I'm gonna call it population by country and create a new data frame here. So we have the second data frame. And when you go to the table view, and then we have that data. We don't really care about the GDP, but like what we care is this population. One thing though, the year column, we have like from 1960 to 2017. But what we want is only 1 year is enough. And then like we want to get a 2017 population. So what we could do is we can filter the data to just keep only 2017 data. To do 2 things. Number one is filter and equal to, and then you can type 2017. But another better way, because maybe some countries might not have 2017, but might have 2016. And in that case, basically what we want to do is the last or like the latest year of the data for each country. And in that case, you can use this summarize function. The summarize function is what's gonna do is you can apply the summarize function like mean or max or sum or so on. In this case, what we want to do is apply this max function. And the max basically is a max value. So like, let's say like 1960 to 2017. What is the max number? 2070. What is the mean number? 1960. So therefore, we want to use max, then the 2070. Maybe like for Japan, 2017 is a max number. Maybe, you know, like Belgium, maybe like 2016 is the max number. That's fine as long as we are using this way. So then column to summarize max number year. So the inside the function is kind of like this, so like a max year. So click on run button, then we get a 2017. Let's go to the summary view and check like, it turned out every country has a 2017 data. So you could have just write 2017, either way. So now we can go back to the COVID-19 deaths data. And then what we want to do is we want to bring that new column right here. Okay, so there's 2 problems. Now, one, this group, right now the data is being grouped or partitioned. You want to actually ungroup when it's not necessary, because sometimes it does a kind of unexpected things because we by respecting the group. So you can always ungroup it by clicking on this button and select the ungroup. So now the grouping is gone. Right hand side, this ungroup steps, remove the grouping setting. Second is this country column. So this is like Afghanistan and all that stuff. There's one problem here is that I think there is here. Okay. This Johns Hopkins data somehow like we have US for the country column, but then the World Bank or population data, the country is United States. So when you try to join, it cannot join. This is like in Excel, you use a VLOOKUP, basically same thing. You need a key columns to match. Then if the values are not matching, then it doesn't get joined. So we want to actually convert it. And then you can actually convert this country name or code to various options, like such as continent or country name, ISO 2-letter ISO code or 3-letter ISO code, not just character, can be the numbers and many other things. So then if both data has, let's say like ISO 2C, like ISO 2-letter codes, then it's easier to just map those together. So that's what we want to do here. Okay. So here, country, region, and then click on the column header menu. And then under this text data wrangling UI, this is actually kind of hard to find this menu, but under the text data wrangling UI, there's a convert, and that's what you want to select. Under the convert option, there are a bunch of different types of conversion. Here, what we want to do is the country. And then from country name, this is country name, to ISO, let's say 2, meaning ISO 2-letter, and then just click on the preview. Then Afghanistan becomes AF, Albania becomes AL, and so on. And the cool thing about this is like the country name, this data is a US, but it can be that United States or just United States or US or U.S. It actually doesn't matter, and it actually does a pretty good job of like considering it as United States. So, but then once it gets detected, then it becomes ISO 2 US for United States. So this looks good, and I'm gonna click on run, but I don't wanna override it. I wanna create a new column as, let's say, country code. And here we have the new columns. And this is the column that I want to use as a key column to join with the population data. Let's check the population data as well. Here, there is, luckily, we already have this ISO 2C. This is a column that has a 2-letter ISO code. So we can use this as a key columns. Okay, so let's go back in here. I want to make sure though, like go to the summary view. And there's only also one thing we need to be careful. If it's an NA, the NA, this what we're gonna do is we're gonna run the join command. Join command get confused because the NA, so it tried to match with every single rows from the target data frame. That's not what we want. So let's remove this like a NA for now. So filter no is not NA, remove NA, and then click run button. Usually I just did it because I don't have much time, but usually you investigate what are the NA, but this time I just simply removed it for the sake of simplicity. Okay, so now go to the table view, and then what you're gonna do is from the country code to select this join step or join menu. And then select the target data frame, in this case, a population data frame, and then select which column to map or as a key column. So like in this case, country ISO 2C. And then if you are not sure, like the letters can be lowercase or uppercase, and in that case, you can actually check this button. But this time we know like both of them are upper letter. So like I'm not gonna just do that. I'm gonna just go ahead with this. Also, sometimes happen like, hey, actually I have a months column. So like I want to use a country and a months column to join. I don't want to join with a wrong months data. In that case, you can click on this plus button to have the multiple columns as a key columns as well. In this case, just a country code is the one we want to get population. So click on run button. Then you get that extra columns. These are the columns coming from this population by country. Now like this data frame is highlighted because it's joined or referenced. So once we have this, then this new des, right now, NA, bunch of NA, but I think because of like January, February, but this number, we wanna divide by the population. Then we can get, which I'm call it, excuse me. Then we can get the number of the deaths per population. When you see though here NA and what's going on here, that's because I think there is no associated value in that population data. So we can't do anything about it. So what we can do is we can remove by filter. But in this case, I'm just gonna go ahead, just go ahead do the calculation. If you want to do it right way, or then you might want to clean up the NA first by filtering. But anyway, so here I'm going to just divide new deaths divided by, now I have the population. The reason you see here, there's like a weird symbol. This is called backtick. Looks like a single quote, but it's the opposite way of direction. And this is called backtick. And when you have the column with a space, or sometimes a special character, and it use this backtick to say, hey, these are the one word of the column name. So that's all it is. If you don't like this kind of thing, then you can use like an underscore something instead of the space. But you want to use a space, you might sometimes see it. Anyway, so this way, and then this kind of like new deaths and per population. Population. Okay. Then one also though, if you click on and then you see this value, Let's go to the summary view. Here, there's a new number, and it's 0 and 0. And let's look at it here. It's almost like a 0 and 0. The reason is the number is so small because the divided by population, which is like usually like a million or billion stuff. So typically, like what you want to do is per million instead of like per population. So you can actually here multiply million, and then by doing this calculation, you get the number of the deaths per 1 million people and how many people die. So I'm going to just change this one too. Instead of population, I'm going to just say 1 million and then click run button. And then now, like I think, let's take a look at the United States just to see how the number turning out. And then here's 0, but here you see, like, for example, 4.08. That means every 1 million people, there are 4 people die from the COVID or might have something to do with COVID on this day. Okay, so we get this number. Now, like, let's go back to the chart. And instead of this, I'm gonna just copy this chart, duplicate, exact the same chart. Instead of like a raw number that people die, I want to show this based on the per population. So y-axis, instead of new deaths, I want to select, oh, again, I need to move this pin button. If you don't like keep moving this pin button, you can actually click on this to unpin it. Then every time like you move, and then the data from the for the chart can be coming from whatever the step selected. But I strongly recommend you always pin, because sometimes you see like data column names have been changed or transformed. And if that happens, the chart gets broken sometimes. So you want to know, you want to make sure that which step the data is, the chart is referencing to always. Then you don't have, you're not going to have like unexpected kind of like a empty chart. Anyway, so I just moved a step to the last 12th step. And then I can select the y-axis, the new deaths per 1 million, and then you ended up getting the chart like this. And then now you see United Kingdom and France had a lot of people die based on the population, compared to population. And the United States, not so much. But then after that July, United States started having more people die than European countries. Then now recently, looks like these two countries, United Kingdom and France, start going higher than United States. Okay, so what we have done is to transform the wide data to long data by using this gather step. And also we convert the data type from character to date. This time, like we just did that, but you know, typically like you have to convert from number to date, or date to number, and in many different directions as well. Then we summarize the data. Then we use the window calculation by using the lag function to calculate the new deaths, because the original data was accumulated. And then we converted the country name to country code, so that we can use that as a key column to join with the population data. And then once we get the population data, we calculated the new deaths per population. And by doing so, there's 12 steps. It's kind of long, but then tomorrow, like I said before, all you need to do is come here and then just import that data. This option has two options: all data or only this data. All meaning it's gonna import this population data too. But population doesn't change every single day, and then the data is only from the 2017 anyway. So what you want to do is click on this button, and then only this source data, meaning only the Johns Hopkins data, directly download from the GitHub data source. Okay, so that's basically it for today. And I like to open up for the question session. So today, like I said at the beginning, this is a unprecedented thing happening this time. But historically, it's crazy thing, right? Like my biggest event of my life, and then so many things, so many lives being changed, and then a lot of different opinions, and also a little bit of politicized. So like there are a lot of different opinions and so on. But one thing I like to emphasize is that the data is there. A lot of different organizations exposing the data. Some data might be biased, some data might be not accurate, some based on the definition and also you can start talking about all the stuff. But most important thing is that data is there, even not perfect. So I like more people to get the data, and then regardless of opinion, regardless of your perspective, just to try understand what you can see, what you can tell, what you don't know, included. But it's very important to access the data. Then to do, you need to transform. You need to know like how to cook the data. Then you can start visualizing, analyzing, and so on. Okay, so if you have any question, I like to open up either in the chat window, or you can unmute yourself and